There's no point in too much of intellectualization. Go try out a few things, see how they work, and take it from there and move on.
Welcome back to Let's Ascend, a channel where you get to know about some rising up lessons blended with music. My today's guest is Rajesh Ramakrishnan, who's the Managing Director of Perfetti, Mille, India. Rajesh has had a spectacular, almost 3-decade-long career where he's worked with several preeminent organizations, which include corporates like Reckitt & Coleman, Marico Industries, PepsiCo, Apollo Tyres, and Hindustan Times. Not only this, Rajesh has worked across India, Bangladesh, and Thailand. Besides having an extremely successful and flourishing corporate career, Rajesh is a man of multiple passions. Among many other things, Rajesh pursues mountaineering, photography, yoga, and running. During my conversation, Rajesh talked about some extremely critical life lessons that helped him ascend in his personal and professional life. And in line with the tradition of Let's Ascend, Rajesh summarized his journey through a beautiful song that I sang on his behalf. So do watch this video till the end, and if you like it, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you. Welcome, Rajesh. Thank you so much for taking out time for Let's Ascend. It's a pleasure to have leaders like you sharing their journey and life lessons with us.
Thanks, Vishal. Thanks for having me on this show. Thank you.
Superb. So Rajesh, I think it'll be great for our audience if you could tell us about your journey so far.
I come from a very typical middle-class family in Chennai. I did my schooling in the same school throughout, so very humble beginnings. And I think a few things that my schooling and experience in Chennai taught me is the values around hard work, values around humility. So typical middle class values that I grew up with and which have helped me till date as well. So those were the formative years. And then I went to BITS Pilani to do my engineering. That was the first time going out of home. So totally took me out of comfort zone. Realized that there is a big, huge world out there. And you also realize that when you go into these kind of places, you are a small fish in a big pond. So, there are many ways in which we need to learn and adapt oneself. So those were some really interesting lessons. Also from a cultural point of view, it was a melting pot of different cultures from across the country. Made some very, very nice friends who were not from the south of India. So that was really nice. So had a great experience there. Also, you realize that the quality and standard of education is at a certain level, and I needed to really be on my toes to keep up with the pace of the quality of education there. So those were good years at BITS Pilani, and I then went on to do my MBA from XLRI. Pretty much towards the end of my engineering days, I figured that that's not something that I wanted to take forward. I realized that computer chips and technology wasn't really something that massively excited me. So I decided to go and do my MBA. I saw a lot of other people writing entrance exams, so I said, let's go see how that is and figure it out. And I did my MBA from XLRI. Amazing 2 years experience there. I think what MBA teaches us is a lot of corporate jargon, which we continue to use till date. Teaches the value of collaboration. There is so much project work to be done and lots of things to be put together. So this whole working in teams, collaboration, etc. And last but not the least is this whole concept of jugaad. Because when you are in an MBA institute, you have to get stuff done. You have to get it done within deadlines. You have to find innovative ways and means of making things happen. So you learn the concept of jugaad, which again is, I think, a life skill which helps all of us as we go forward. And then from there, I joined Reckitt & Coleman in those days from campus placement. So they have iconic brands like Dettol, Mortein, Cherry Blossom. So I joined in sales through the management training program, like most people during those days. I think the sales stints were more life experiences than just sales experiences, because I was posted in markets like Orissa to start with. And remember, I'm talking about those days when mobile phones didn't exist. So if you had to speak to somebody, you had to go and wait in a STD booth. And typically you wait for the 9 o'clock time slot so that it is half rate and so on, right? And we used to still put together data on a floppy drive, and that used to be taken by courier to the head office to punch in the sales data. So I'm talking about those times. So I was initially posted in Orissa, followed by Bihar. And I still remember the first time I was on a train to go to Bihar from Calcutta. I was in first AC, which was considered a privilege. But as I boarded the train, a few people came and said, "Look, we'd like to sit here. You might want to go and sit in a corner somewhere else." So it was a polite suggestion of saying, "Get out from here and go find your own place." So you learn a lot of the lessons having come out of a sheltered MBA and sheltered kind of life, right? So those life skills stand you in good stead even today. So they were very interesting experiences. So I did a few years of sales in the East and South, and then went on to a typical brand manager stint. I remember my first brand was Cherry Blossom, which used to have Charlie Chaplin as a sort of an icon for the brand. And so I started my journey there and then worked across multiple brands. So Reckitt was a very interesting stint in terms of just getting my feet wet and hands dirty in the corporate world. So after 8 very interesting years there, I moved to Marico, another great company to work for in Bombay. Of course, worked on brands like Parachute. And I think what Marico taught me is the value of prototyping. So, we all have a lot of ideas and we keep intellectualizing over it. And what I learned there is, let's just go and try it out. You try 10 things, 5 things work, 5 things don't. But at least you learn from that, fail fast and move on. After 2 years there, I joined PepsiCo, actually Frito-Lay in those days. So I worked on Kurkure, which is a brand very, very close to my heart. And then subsequently on Quaker Oats as well. Again, 6 years in Frito-Lay were amazing years. They were years where I grew as a marketeer at one level, and also had an amazing team to work with. So people who are still like family to me after so many years. So what Frito taught me was the power of sharpening my strategic thinking. So that was one big thing from there. Also networking and the importance of networking, because that's the first time I got into matrix organization. So how do we network effectively to get work done? And the art of storytelling. Because, sometimes you realize that you know the stuff, but it's also how you tell the story in a very compelling and evocative manner to the audience. So again, those are skills that I picked up in my 6 years in Frito. I also had a good fortune of spending 1 year in Thailand on a regional role. Again, very interesting. And that taught me a very, very important skill, which I would urge everybody to look at, is how to influence without authority. And that skill comes to good use not only in our work, but even say when we deal with our spouse. So influencing without authority is something which is, I believe, a life skill. And then I got a very interesting opportunity outside of consumer products. So I joined Apollo Tyres as their global head of marketing. It was to build a commodity like a tire into a global brand. So that excited me. I did that role only for about 9 months, because one of my philosophies is that if I don't find joy in what I do, I shouldn't be doing it. So that job didn't really excite me, because that was not the kind of culture I found very exciting. And at that point of time, I decided to take a sabbatical. So I took a 6-month break from work, and I have quite a passions that I pursue. So I decided, let me go do all those things that I've been wanting to do. Photography is a big passion. So I took my camera and backpacked across a few cities in India, went to Pushkar, Banaras, Calcutta during Pujo. So I had a very good time sort of going by myself, taking pictures, meeting friends for coffee, and so on and so forth. 6 excellent months. Did that. And then I thought it was time for me to come back to work. And actually, my wife kicked me out of home as well, saying, go find yourself a job. So, interestingly, an old friend of mine and a colleague from Reckitt, my earlier boss, he was in Hindustan Times, and he said, I have a role for you as head of marketing. Would you like to join? And I thought, yeah, newspaper industry sounds like a very interesting place to work in. So I said, let me take that on. Again, 2 very good years there, because what happens is when you're working in consumer products, your world is fully built around the category that you work in. Whereas if you work for a newspaper, the world is your category. I mean, you need to know as much about sports, about business, politics, and so on and so forth in order to have meaningful conversations with editorial and to see how to build newspaper as a brand. So we did some very good, interesting work in Hindustan Times. In fact, we won a Cannes for a very interesting initiative that we had launched on print innovation. Again, had a great team to work with. So did that for about 2 years. And then again, I figured that my heart lies in consumer products. And that's when this interesting opportunity came up with Perfetti to head their business in Bangladesh, actually. Now, Bangladesh was not really in the realm of countries that I would have looked at as top 3 countries to go and work in. But to me, the company is an amazing company. Very, very iconic brands that we all grew up with: Alpenlibe, Mentos, Centerfruit, Chupa Chups. And it was a general manager role, and this thing was always to get into a general manager role. So I said, yeah, that sounds like an interesting opportunity. Let's go for it. So I didn't even do a recce visit, nothing. Just went and joined Perfetti in Bangladesh. 3.5 amazing years there, both personally and professionally. The business was not doing very well that time. The team was in a little bit of a not good space. So a lot of hard work initially, a lot of heavy lifting. But when we ended the 3 years, we were back on growth. We were at highest ever market shares and left behind a winning team, which was, full of passion and self-belief. So amazing stint there. Also some very, very good friends made who still in good touch with. And, to me, I would never forget the Bangladesh stint because it introduced me to 2 more of my passions. One is yoga. Ironically, I picked up yoga in Bangladesh, and that too from a Danish teacher to start with. And the other is I went on my first ever trek when I was in Bangladesh. I went to the Everest Base Camp. And since then, I've been going on a trek every single year. So subsequently, I did Kilimanjaro, then went to Annapurna Base Camp. And recently, last year, went to Martha Valley. So yeah, trekking is again a passion. So these 2 passions I got introduced to when I was in Bangladesh. And after that, I was offered a role in India. Again, to me, it was a very different role. The role didn't exist before. So they said India is going to go through a business transformation. Would you like to come back as a chief transformation officer? And when I asked them, what does that mean? They said, okay, you have to sit down and write your own JD. And to me, what excited me about the opportunity was to work with BCG. And I know you won't be very happy about it, but we did some good work with them in terms of, putting together the framework for business transformation. And the role was to really, again, what I managed to leverage was the influencing without authority, which I picked up many years ago, to see how to get everybody to work towards getting to a sustainable, profitable growth. And that was really the agenda. And I did that for about 10 months with some very good results. And as a result, I then got bumped up to head the business. So I've been doing this role as head of the India business and Nepal for the last 4 years exactly, actually. And it's been an amazing ride. We've managed to grow very healthily despite the COVID situation. We are back to extremely good profitable growth. Our market shares are at an all-time high. We got certified 4 times as a great place to work in. So feel good about the journey so far. Having a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. What do you mean by that? A growth mindset is always asking a question of how do I do something? Because the fixed mindset is, can I do it? And then there is a 50% chance that answer is no. But if you ask a question, how can I do it? There is always a possible way of doing it. And I think that's something that I believe in. Even the first time I went to Everest Base Camp, I mean, it was my first ever trek. I'm scared of heights. I'm scared of flying in small aircraft. So, right, I've got several such fears. And to me, it was like, okay, there was this friend who said, I'm taking a bunch of people to Everest Base Camp. Would you be interested? And the question in my mind was never, can I go? Right? It was always, oh, okay, that sounds extremely interesting. It will take me out of my comfort zone in many ways. Let me find out how to do it, right? And so I told her, okay, I'm signing up today. Now you tell me what do I need to do to prepare myself for it, right? As an example from a personal life. And similarly, when I came into this role of Chief Transformation Officer, I mean, we were flat on growth and profit, etc. And the task given was we need to grow healthy double digit and be a profitable company. And the question for me was always, okay, how do we make it happen? So let's sit down, figure out what are the various levers that we need to work on and so on. So, I mean, there are multiple examples, but approaching it with a how to do it rather than can it happen, I found has always been very helpful. There is a circle of influence and there is a circle of concern around it. Typically what happens is, and I'm equally party to that, in my early days, I used to operate a lot in the circle of concern. When I go out for my photography, will it rain today? Will I get this job? Will that promotion happen? No, these are all things in your circle of concern. You have no control or influence over them. And the more you operate in your circle of concern, the larger the circle of concern becomes and the less control you have on anything. What is better is to operate in the circle of influence. Is what can I do about something, right? And the more you operate in the circle of influence, the bigger the circle of influence becomes. And by corollary, the smaller the circle of concern becomes. So it's not about, oh, will I get the promotion? What do I need to do a good job of whatever I'm doing? And then the promotion is something that's not in your hands. It will happen if it has to happen, right? I know it sounds a little philosophical, but the point is, the more we start operating in our circle of influence, the more in control of things we are, and the less we are worried about what is not in our hands. If I look at my own professional journey, in the early days when I was brand manager and I was sales manager and so on, I used to always think, this guy's got ahead of me, he's got a promotion, I'm still doing what I'm doing. Or when I applied for a few jobs, I didn't get it, I used to feel terrible about it, saying, what did I do? I thought I did everything right and I still didn't get the job. So I think all of us go through that, me included. So those were areas where I realized I was operating in my circle of concern and getting worried and getting hassled about things on which I really had no control. As I grew, I started letting go of those things and said, let me focus on what I need to do. And when I do that, whatever needs to happen will happen. And even the way things moved when I moved from Perfetti, Bangladesh to the transformation office role, which they said was a 2-year role, but eventually was a 10-month role. And then I took on the business and now it is wherever it is. So I think those are a few examples of how I think that works well. And the other personal example I would say is like earlier when I used to go for my photography shoots and trips, I used to say, oh my God, let it be a clear, bright blue sky day tomorrow, right? So that I can get some good pictures. And sometimes if it was not, then I used to feel unhappy. But now, to me, I have also evolved as a photographer, and it is about taking interesting pictures with a different perspective, which will make people sit up and say, hey, I didn't think of it that way. So it doesn't matter if it's blue skies or cloudy or raining or whatever. It doesn't matter. So whatever is not in your control, don't worry about that. Focus on what you can influence. I think it's more, it's relevant across levels, but more so as you grow in your career, is your ability to seamlessly toggle between the balcony and the dance floor. So how are you able to keep a 50,000 feet view to take a look at the big picture, take a 50 feet view, which is to do with operational excellence, and a 5 feet view, which is self. So as a leader, how am I able to very seamlessly and effectively toggle between these 3 levels? Periodic reflection to say, okay, the week gone by, did I spend enough time between strategic thinking at one level, operational matters at the other level, and more importantly, on myself also. So I think a constant review of how you are doing by through reflection. I think that really helps. Taking feedback from the others, periodic check-in with your colleagues, your manager, etc., in terms of saying, hey, do you think I'm spending too much time on strategic thinking versus operational versus self? So I think doing those check-ins with others and self is a great way to do that. And I also found coaching helps a lot in that, because I'm also getting certified to be a coach. Because when you're coaching, you think you're helping other people, but you're helping yourself a lot as well, because you get a lot of inputs from people which can make you a better person. And also, one of the critical ingredients for coaching is listening, good listening skills. And that also sort of feeds into this different altitudes of leadership as well. So these are a few ways in which I try and keep myself going on this particular one. One of the values that is very important for me is learning and growth. And I believe that the day we stop learning is when we'll just sort of vegetate. And to me, like for example, photography is a great way of learning. So I do my photography, but it takes me to places which I would have never gone to otherwise. So going into a mosque in Dhaka during the middle of Ramadan to get that particular shot. I mean, I would have never done it in my life if it was not for photography. Or, going in a hot air balloon in Burma just to get that sunlight, sunrise shot at a particular, place. So these are experiences that I, actively seek. And INSEAD was a little bit of this in a similar vein, which is that it's been more than 25 years since I last, went to college. And I've always wanted to see if I can go and refresh some of my thinking, get to learn new things, get to meet interesting people, and really get a campus experience. So the program has not yet started. It starts from tomorrow. I'm sort of excited and nervous at the same time. So that's how I've landed up here in France.
Rajesh, we have a tradition in Let's Ascend where we conclude every video with a song that best represents either your journey or your beliefs. So we would love to hear from you, which is that song that you believe is, symbolizes your journey or beliefs. And it will be terrific if you could sing that for us.
Wow. I think that's a very interesting concept, Vishal. Unfortunately, I can't sing to save my life, although I love music and I love to listen to music. So I'm having to going to request you to sing that on my behalf. If I had to pick, to me, I'll go back to the movie Rock On, because in many ways that movie reflects a lot of beliefs and views I have of how to lead life, right? In terms of going and doing your stuff, having the right kind of attitude, curiosity, open mind, and so on and so forth. So if I had to pick, actually I would pick two songs, if that's okay, and I'll mention those two songs and you could sing whichever one. To me, the two songs are Sinbad the Sailor and Socha Hai. Because, they in a way reflect curiosity as to why should the sky be blue, why should water be wet, and so on and so forth. So this whole thing of questioning status quo, having an open mind, having curiosity, to really think about stuff in terms of why is certain things. Because to me, that's the starting point for change. If you have to change something for the better, you have to start by questioning what is there. So in a way, it embodies all of that. And these are two songs that come to mind.
आसमां है नीला क्यों, पानी गीला गीला क्यों, गोल क्यों है ज़मीन, सिल्क में है नरमी क्यों, आग में है गर्मी क्यों, दो और दो पाँच क्यों नहीं, पेड़ हो गए कम क्यों, तीन है ये मौसम क्यों, चांद दो क्यों नहीं, दुनिया में है जंग क्यों, बहता लाल रंग क्यों, सरहदें है क्यों हर कहीं, सोचा है ये तुमने क्या कभी सोचा है, ये है ये क्या सभी सोचा है, सोचा नहीं तो सोचो अभी। बहती क्यों है हर नदी, होती कभी